And we are live. Marcus, I just don't know if I'm wanting to do this tonight, man.
Why
I
not?
just I just don't know if I want to. I was making some homemade bread earlier today,
Mm,
and if you've ever made homemade bread, it's like a process, like a 4 or 5 hour process, right? And
it
man,
is. Yeah.
and I let it rise, and then I did the thing and let it rise again, and I kind of made the crust a little bit too hard, man. So I don't know if I'm down for a podcast. I'm just joking, man. Of course, I want to be here with you. Welcome everyone to the
Yo,
Black. Welcome to the Black Powder Podcast here on the Firearms Radio Network. My name is Michael White, and I'm joined as always with my melanated brother in arms, Mr. Marcus Matthews, going
hey,
under the
how you doing?
going under the moniker tonight, the Libertarian Chocolate Dilf. We're back to that one. So
I
that's
had to.
good. Yeah,
I
you
had
had
to.
to. You
I
had
was
to.
like racking my brain. I didn't put enough thought into it last week, and you gave me a little bit of the business for that. I didn't appreciate it, but we all need certain types of motivation to get us where we need to be. And I recycled a little bit, but it's a true statement.
Man,
I'm talking
recycling's good for the environment. It might be good for yourself too. So I'm
word.
liking it. So Marcus Matthews is here with me again on the Black Powder Podcast, the only podcast that I know of, Marcus, that takes a white dude from Arkansas and a black dude from California, sit down weekly, chop it up about all kind of things, especially god awful government. In firearms news, for all of you out there, remember about 40 million of you today are likely felons if you haven't taken a certain piece of plastic off of a certain thing. That has happened today. So today is June 1st, and that rule is now into effect, Marcus. Of course, I don't have any of those. I'm never going to have any of those. Don't I hope none of our listeners do either. So
Yeah,
they probably don't need to worry about that. Um,
nothing to worry about.
we are, as always, we are a proud member of the Firearms Radio Network. Find us on the Firearms Radio Network. But also, we are proudly sponsored this evening by Common Arms Trade Company. Common Arms Trade Company is, man, they're the one-stop shop for everything 2A, in my opinion. Marcus, do you agree?
Absolutely. And one of the aspects about them that I really, really like is this.
Yeah, use promo code Black Powder for 10% off all orders over $100. I mean, he's got Common Arms Trade Company. You can get pretty much anything. If it's a gun
Anything,
or a
yeah.
bullet or an accessory or something, get it from this dude. He knows what he's doing. By the way, follow him on Facebook. Go to Facebook first, then go to his website from his Facebook, Common Arms Trade Company. It's spelled like it sounds like it's spelled. Go there and find. He's got great content. I like that dude a lot. And of course, you should too, because he's sponsoring this program. Now, without further ado, we're going to bring our guest in for the evening. We're doubling back with the libertarian presidential hopefuls, and we have the one and the only Mr. Chase Oliver here with us. Chase, thank you so much for joining us tonight. For those of you who don't know, Chase Oliver ran for Senate in Georgia against Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker. He was there. Herschel Walker didn't show up for
I
the
laugh
debate.
every time I hear his name.
It's hard not to laugh when you talk about Herschel Walker, but if you haven't gone and watched Chase's debate, you really should. It was really the best distillation of liberty that I have seen personally, maybe in my lifetime, from a state level sort of thing like that, and it was really really awesome. Chase is aptly chasing the Libertarian presidential nomination. We're still probably about a year away from when that decision happens, but man, he's hitting it hard. Chase, welcome, man. Welcome.
Just over 1 year away. You're right. Just like 12 months away. It is a marathon, not a sprint. That's for sure. I see the comment saying, yeah, I was just talking with Forward Party folks on Twitter Spaces as I was driving myself home. So that got me here in the nick of time.
I think Chase, we're still having a little bit of that connection issue with you. So if for the listeners, if Chase blinks in and out a little bit, y'all just bear with us. It'll probably get better. It's just that thing. So you were on Twitter with the Forward Party. What were you talking about?
Mostly about ranked choice voting and about
Nice.
how, when I was a candidate for U.S. Senate, ranked choice voting was like 5% support. And then after I forced that runoff, it shot up to over 30%.
Yeah, Scientific says Chase just turned the entire Forward Party into libertarians, I assume.
I mean, I have that. If I have that magic power, let me use it. But really,
Yeah.
what I was encouraging them is to say, no matter who is on the ballot, they need to be voting for someone that's not a Republican or a Democrat if the Forward Party is really serious about breaking the duopoly. And it'll be the Libertarian that's going to be on the ballot in most of those states. So, and likely the only choice outside of the duopoly. So I encourage them to check things out and see if they like what they see. I'm sure they don't agree with everything in my platform because I am pretty damn libertarian. We can definitely be in agreement there.
There you go, man. You know, Chase, what I like about you a lot, man, is that you distill these ideas, you predicate these ideas in such a fashion where it's continuous. Every time I hear you talk, you say the same things. You say, hey, ranked choice voting. You'll talk to other parties about it. You'll talk to Democrats about it. You'll talk to Republicans about it. You are consistent in your messaging. I will give you that. You're incredibly consistent, which is envious because I run a campaign. I'm talking to other people that have run campaigns, and that really is a hard thing, is staying consistent. What is the secret for you? Because you're so busy, man. You're hitting up state after state after state. How many states have you visited so far? And how do you do it, man? How do you make it work?
Well, I'm at like,
man, we keep losing
20
Chase.
if we include DC. I don't know if you do. I do. So about 20 places I've visited there and campaigned. And really the way that gets done is, first and foremost, it gets done with donor support. I have donors who help support this campaign. I have donors in nearly every state of the union now at this point. And then I also have a really great volunteer team who, when I hit the ground running, like I'm on the where I need to go, ready to do an event, get back to the hotel, fall asleep, wake up first thing in the morning, somebody is there to pick me up. So I have a really great volunteer team too. I have over 100 volunteer coordinators in 40 states. So some of these folks I haven't even hit their state yet, but allows me to stay extremely busy and be very effective at what I'm doing. Now, as far as staying on message, I try not to give the exact same stump speech every week. Certain point. But I try to consistently tell a story. I try to have a beginning, a middle, and an end when I give a speech. So that has always served me pretty well.
Well, it seems to be working really well. Go ahead, Marcus.
I wanted to ask you. You said something, and I had to write down what my question was. What is a libertarian to Chase Oliver?
Good question.
A libertarian to me is somebody who believes broadly in the principles of freedom, so long as we're not causing force, fraud, coercion, or theft. And so ideally, the elevator pitch is libertarians believe that if you're living your life in peace and harming no one, government shouldn't have a say in what you do in your life. That is
a good answer. Good answer, Chase. So Chase, we were talking a little bit before we came on the air. You have a lot of attention. You gathered a lot in the media. Vice Media picked you up, for a story right when you kind of caused the runoff there in Georgia, and it really puts you in the national spotlight. For a few days there, you couldn't turn on Twitter and not see something about Chase Oliver, right? It just was, and that really kind of launched you kind of into a different level of sort of attention. How do you deal with the negative attention that you get, from social media and things like that? Like, I know that every day I get some stupid comment or some stupid message, and I have to imagine that you get 10 times the amount of that I do. And I know for me personally, and for every candidate I talk to, while we try not to let that stuff get to us, it does a little bit. It just absolutely does. How do you deal with it?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I will say this: if you have social media, actively use your mute button. Trolls are going to troll. Ignore those. And you can always look at a profile and you can say, okay, this guy's got, he's got 3 accounts that literally go after people, troll accounts. Okay, I'm just going to mute that guy. That's not worth listening to.
Sure.
And then you have to find people who are worth. You think, okay, well, it's actually worth investing the time to have a conversation and a discourse here. And sometimes that's not even necessarily for the person who's trying to give you criticism. It's more for the audience to know that there's a better position or a different position. But really, you have to have thick skin. And it's Pride Month. Quote from a drag queen. Her name was Jinx Monsoon. She says, "Criticism," and that's how I roll.
Chase, I tell you what I'm going to do here. I'm going to call an audible on our connection. What I want you to do, if it's okay with our production manager here, Mr. Marcus Matthews, I'd like Chase to exit and then re-enter the studio with the StreamYard link here and see if we can get a better connection with him, because he's saying some good stuff, and I don't want to miss this audio at all. You cool with that? All right, come on back. Let's see here.
I'll be right back.
Come on right back. Yeah, we want to make sure that we hear every word that Chase Oliver has to say, and sometimes software and hardware don't always cooperate with us. So I want to make sure that he's in here. But yeah, votechaseoliver.com, that libertarian lady. Thank you so much for the shout out for Chase's team right there. Yeah, we agree. So Marcus, How do you deal with the haters on social media, man?
I'm not diplomatic at all.
Yeah.
And I don't want anybody to ever assume that I'm going to talk to you in a peaceful fashion if you're full of shit. So that's
Chase,
how. Yeah.
you already look better. The video's better. Let's hope that we don't freeze up again. If we did, I'm gonna be so angry. Here we go. I think we got you.
I'm sorry. It's a conspiracy from Xfinity Internet.
Oh yeah, Comcast is probably working against us. I have a feeling they worked against me for quite a long time. I'm quite sure. You know, we had this little thing called Tornado, and we didn't have like internet for like 3 weeks, and it was all Comcast they were doing. And I'm sure yeah, they were. So we were talking about haters on the internet, and you were saying talking about having a thick skin. And let's pick that conversation back up. So having a thick skin, besides those two things, your mute button and thick skin, what do you do to stay positive with your messaging? Because you consistently stay very positive with your messaging.
Well, it's kind of my brand, right? Like I am a positive libertarian. And if I let myself get down in the mud, I'm doing myself a disservice and I'm doing my message a disservice.
I admire that.
I do too.
I tell my volunteers and followers all the time, just ignore that stuff. Try not to candidates who are running for this nomination. That's two reasons. One, assuming I'm going to win this nomination, I'm going to have the support of those other candidates who are running.
Right.
And selfishly, it's nearly every weekend as I'm traveling around the country. So it's not really helpful for me to be going around and insulting people, right? So I think it does you a disservice to have you and your followers being trolls. I would rather have a welcome discourse with people. And I'm going to have debate. That's the nature of what we do. But you can do that in a way that's not being negative. So like I have always tried to look on the bright side. I've always tried to world because the world's negative enough, you know, without me putting more into it.
That's a fair point. You know, but you are kind of lucky, like the class you're in right now of, you know, and you know, you, Mike Termott and Lars, you know, all three of y'all seem to all have very positive messaging, I think, and all seem to be very respectful to each other, and that's really quite uplifting to see. Because you know, as a libertarian, what I want to see happen is I want to see the Libertarian Party overall do well. Okay, that's what I want to. That's what I want to see overall. I don't like the fighting between caucuses. I don't like the dragging of each other down. I don't like the throwing of darts. So you're not a real libertarian, or, you know, you're not this enough, or you're not that enough. Like, you know, I believe that our job is to try to change hearts and minds. And so I want a powerful brand and a national presence. And so you running for president, or Lars or Mike Termott, that position really is that brand ambassador. And so I'm really happy to see that the three of y'all are really getting along so well. I mean, it makes me very happy when I see, you know, friendly back and forth about issues on social media between you guys, or when I see you, you know, if y'all have appeared at the same event together, the photo opportunities, you know, with everybody. Because let's be honest, in the past, that hasn't always happened in the LP. And so I think from my perspective, that's already promoting something better than we were, in my opinion. That's rising above where we've been already. So again, hats off to you, man, on that.
Well, just 2 quick points to that.
Sure.
Whoever this candidate is, it's going to be our 2024 nominee. I hope it's me. Right. Is responsible for being our chief brand officer and for creating that positive brand awareness with the Libertarian Party. So that way, when they see Libertarian on a ballot, they know that candidate's supporting good principles and it a level of trust with the voter. But in terms of being positive with each other, yeah, like we have to be friendly with one another. There's really no other way to do it. And right now, by the way, anybody who jumps in this race, you're going to get me approaching you with this. I have a book, Economics, Economics in One Lesson, that book that you get. Everybody gets it for free. I have a copy right now that I'm getting every one of our candidates to sign. So that way, when one of us eventually wins the nomination, we can auction that off at the 2024 convention for the party. So we can go ahead and put some money in the party's tank and give somebody a really nice takeaway from the 2024 primary process. One of the things I wanted to do just to say, hey, you know, we're all in this together. We are all members of the Libertarian Party. And as candidates, we need to be able to be positive and working towards each other. Does that mean that we'll have disagreements? We're going to. That's why we're all running. But it doesn't mean that we have to be jerks to each other. It doesn't mean we have to be mean to one another. And trust me, there's going to be plenty of time for that stuff. podcast. Keep your powder dry for when it really matters, and that's going to be in the general election.
That's absolutely right. And what differentiates, I think, the LP currently, like in Libertarian Lady just highlighted it, talking about us in the Republicrats. The Republican primary is going to be a sling fest of mud. The Democrat primary is shaping up to be one of suppression, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like both parties alternate between which one they're going to be. Last year, the Republicans were the party of suppression, and so the fact that we have all of the guys that are in the front running right now in our party are getting along and are saying positive things. Mike Termott will say something positive about you, but he'll say, "But I'm different because of this." And Lars Mapstead will say something positive about you and say, "But I'm different because of this." Nobody's saying he sucks and I'm great. This is why you should. And I just absolutely love it. I know I'm beating a dead horse about it, but really, it sets the LP apart, I think, in 2024. And I hope that message catches on to voters. I really do. Marcus, you had a question, don't you?
Well, it's more of a statement because I want to bring some negativity into this for one quick second. Because that's what I do very well. But currently the situation with the duopoly is the choice between somebody offering you a bowl of hot diarrhea soup or a cold shit sandwich, because the field is just there is not one Republican that I look at and say, "Oh, yeah, maybe," and absolutely not on the Democrats.
I like RFK, man, a little bit, like a little bit.
There's something wrong with him. There's something wrong with him. And his family's cursed.
Don't talk about guns, climate change, free speech.
I think I like him just because they don't like him, right? Like, because you're right, Chase. There's nothing I really policy-wise agree with him on, but I'm like, well, they don't like that guy, then maybe I need to like him a little bit.
I have an aversion to nepo babies. Yeah. So and like. Don't get more politically inside families than the freak
the Kennedys. Yeah.
So I just have a hard time believing he's like a rugged outsider, right? Like
no, not at all. He
controlled opposition,
and has been so since World War I.
He says some things that maybe I agree with on some things, right? I'm sure I could pick literally if I and sometimes it would take a long time, but I bet if I could find one thing maybe that I could agree with him on. Well, does not outweigh the other 99 things that I won't be agreeing with them on. It just,
Yeah, he was right
so
on
back to you, Marcus. You're right. There's nobody that's good.
Shit, but
y'all disregard what Michael White just said. There's nobody that's good. All right, y'all just forget that.
I want to highlight this comment again from our great friend, that Libertarian Lady. And that's why the Libertarian Party is awesome. Mainly because of me. I'm going to say that. And I'm not trying to, steal your thunder, Chase, because you're out there. And I know you work full-time and you travel every week. This guy is doing something 7 days a week. And that's one of the aspects that I admire about you, because it's a tireless job. And doing this, like Mike Termott said last week when we had him on, that the prospects of winning are always slim for a libertarian.
Sure. And it's inversely related to the size of the office. So the larger the office, the less the chances. It's just the truth of the game. Yes.
And for you to focus so much energy into this process, you and the rest of the guys, and you in particular, to focus so much energy, because you're still working full time, right?
I'm doing gig economy work right now, so that I can be flexible enough to campaign as full time as possible.
So because Chase, you were working like 4 days a week at a job, right?
Yeah. Now I am sometimes campaigning 4 days a week. Sometimes I'm freelancing and doing odd jobs here and there. I make as much money as I did when I worked full time, but that's part of the game, right? I'm looking into some other things involved with how I can earn an income and still be flexible enough to run. And then the other thing is that I'm doing is my parents are getting older, so I'm kind of helping them. They're about to be moving into their home for their retirement years and their golden years. Unmarried son who lives within driving distance of them. So that is my lot out of the four of us. I'm the one who's helping my parents out a lot, which I'm very happy to do. It's paying it back for all the good things they did for me growing up.
So you heard it here first on the Black Powder Podcast, folks. Chase Oliver is a man of sacrifice. He has sacrificed his personal career for the LP, and now he's even sacrificing for mom and dad. So, thank you very much,
That
Chase.
says a lot.
That does say a lot. It really does. I
don't for president. Family comes first, and that will never change in my life. Family and faith are going to be the two things that always are the near. Those two things. This is what I'm doing. Spending as much time as I can, and not getting rich certainly.
I don't think any of us are getting rich. Promoting the LP, and I get rich in spirit, and I get rich in friends.
Yeah, that's
I have made some of the best friends of my life. Involved in libertarian politics. And I get to sit down with people like you, and I wouldn't, Chase. I'd have never met you. I would have been able to see you on a debate, but I wouldn't have been able to have your personal cell phone number. And be like, hey man, thanks for recommending Picard to me. I really like it. I mean that, by the way. It was really good. Thanks.
Yeah,
you told me
it was good.
You told me that I was going to like it.
Picard?
It's Star Trek, like the new thing.
Oh.
Man. Yeah.
No, bro, this is a Star Wars themed podcast, so you guys need to take that Star Trek shit elsewhere.
Chase is going to get something for you here. Yeah. No,
Here we go with the Trekkie shit. Chase
and I are both sci-fi guys, and he was like, "Man, watch it."
I like both. I like both, man.
Okay,
both are
so
good.
which is better?
Yeah, because I don't know what kyber crystal I got in this one right now.
Well, okay. Oh, here we go.
Oh,
all
right.
It's red right now.
Yeah. You have Marcus. Don't you have a picture with a lightsaber?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
because I am an original day one Star Wars fan.
Okay, let's have a little fun conversation here. Best Star Wars movie.
Ooh, no, it's tough because there's two that I really go to. It's either the only correct answers are either Empire Strikes Back or
right there,
or Rogue One.
Rogue One, yes.
Of the new Star Wars,
I think you nailed it.
Light years ahead of any other of the new Star Wars films.
Although, you know what? Rewatching them, I will tell you this: rewatching them, the prequels are underrated. I think in rewatching them, if I've watched them with a non-cynical mind now, and I go back and I go, man, you know what? Jar Jar Binks wasn't so bad. No, you know what I'm saying?
I'm about to end the podcast right now.
He wasn't so bad, man.
He was absolutely horrible. Ruined.
Chase, I'm saying this just to piss Marcus off. That's the only reason I'm saying
Jar Jar Binks brought about the freaking Emperor.
Now, let me tell you why Michael likes the prequels here. Michael likes
I'm going to say this one again, Chase. I think.
So he is out like that because we hear taxation of trade routes and our libertarian ears perk up.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's lots of committees and legislative crap that goes on in those first three.
I will
say Revenge of the Sith, the Anakin Obi-Wan lightsaber.
Yes, the Anakin Obi-Wan lightsaber duel is pretty good, but you're right. There's a lot of good political quotes that come out of it. In fact, one of my favorite quotes, politically speaking, comes from the prequels. This is how liberty dies, right?
Yeah.
With an applause.
Thunderous applause. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So it's not terrible. I'm Empire Strikes Back all the way. That's my favorite one of all time. But I'm with you on Rogue One. In fact, I just recently rewatched Rogue One like a couple weeks ago, and I watched
Empire like 2 days ago.
My wife hadn't seen the original 3 in like 20 years, and unfortunately, like you can't find the original 3. It seems like, right? Okay,
no, it's only
like the ones that had the new edit and the new CGI, and of course, Greedo shooting first and all this, and I was like, they just ruined it. They just ruined it.
Okay, so let me ask Chase, what's your opinion on Solo?
The movie Solo?
Yeah,
I was very mad on it. I mean, like,
okay, cool.
It was very it's very underwhelming. Like it was kind of like when they did Young Hercules instead of the Hercules show. It just kind of didn't fit. Like I didn't like the guy that got playing Solo.
Okay, where are you at with Mandalorian?
I like the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was not a big fan of Book of Boba Fett though. Like because I thought they could have done Boba Fett way better. They kind of really.
I thought it was C+ at best.
Yeah. I mean,
and from a narrative perspective,
and they wasted the villain in Boba Fett as well. They had a great villain they wasted, and then I liked the Kenobi show. Other than Flea being unable to catch baby Leia through the woods. Like, that is the most unbelievable chase scene. It looked really bad. But other than that, most of the Kenobi show I really liked. And I'll say this. I love that Hayden Christensen nowadays is getting his props because he got a lot of crap when he was making the prequels. You know, everybody said he was terrible. And I think people are realizing he was doing the best he could with the material he had.
Right.
It wasn't really the best writing for him to do. But he's a really good actor, and he really loves the universe. So I don't know. I'm a big fan of. And then, you know, as far as sci-fi, my major jam is Dune Part 2 coming out pretty soon.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
If we
Dune
want to talk
1?
about movies that involve the terrors of giant and all of the Dune novels are just a parable about how destructive absolute power can be and fanaticism. And, you know, as a libertarian, it reminds me to stay grounded and not become too fanatical in my libertarianism.
Right. Don't want to be House Harkonnen. Yeah, there you go, right?
So my last point on the Star Wars topic is I've seen roughly 3/4 of Solo. And that was over 8 times because I cannot stay awake during that whole movie. It is, if I am feeling any sort of insomnia or it's like my brain's racing, I could throw on 2 movies. Master and Commander, because that movie always puts me to sleep, even though I love it. And Solo. Solo is like, what is that hormone people are taking now?
Melatonin.
Yes. Solo is
It's more like propofol, the milk of the
Oh, dude, yeah.
When Michael Jackson used to take to fall asleep.
Yeah, man. Getting knocked out, man.
Yeah, when I had my colonoscopy, they gave me that, and I was like, is that Michael Jackson's milk? And they were like, yeah. And I was talking to the lady, and next thing you know, I just heard somebody snapping rubber gloves and said, we're all done. That stuff was beautiful. I mean, it was some of the most restful sleep.
So again, folks, I want to remind you, if you want non-political political commentary, always tune into the Black Powder podcast. No other podcast goes the way that we go. It just doesn't happen anywhere. I'm looking forward to putting a Chase Oliver yard sign in my front yard, and I live in an HOA that doesn't allow signs. That libertarian lady, that's the way. That's the way.
So
this is the way.
The way you get around that is also put landmines in your front yard, and the HOA won't get anywhere near to take it away.
There you go.
Around the country, you guys, and one of the things that I'm asking folks to do, and if I can put it out there to folks who might be listening right now, if you see me across the country, I collect these 3x5 cards because there's this book here. It's called the Freedom Cards, and a guy who I went to high school with made this book, and he got a bunch of people all over the country to fill out 3x5 cards, and he curated a book, and he asked people to write to you. Now, in this book, the only libertarian that I can see is Vermin Supreme in 2016.
Oh, wow.
Who I endorsed.
That's the only candidate, or that's the only libertarian voice, really, that's in this book. They got Republicans and Democrats. They got all kinds of celebrities. So I'm traveling around the country asking libertarians as I go to conventions or other events, fill out a card and bring it to me, or I will have cards available at my tables for you to fill these out. And so I got like a bunch of really good ones. Like one of my favorite ones is legalized cocaine.
Chase, say that again because you broke up on that one again. What we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to have you back again in just a couple weeks because we got to redo this. But yeah, say that one again. What's your favorite one?
Freedom means legalized cocaine and automatic machine guns.
There you go. Okay, that's a pretty good one.
If you don't like that, you're not American.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, come on. Yeah.
I have a question for Chase.
Sure.
You mentioned your high school friend. And this is going to segue into another segment here on the Black Powder podcast. But what was your high school experience like?
That's a good one.
It was kind of complicated. I left school and then jumped back in to finish it because it was a combination of I was very bored with public school. I was getting bullied quite a bit because I came out at 14.
Wow.
So
okay.
It's Pride Month. So I came out at 14. So I had a lot of that going on. But I really enjoyed school. I had some bullying. I had a pretty awesome experience. I had great friends.
Say that again about bullying.
Aside from bullying.
Oh, okay.
I had great friends. I was at a public school, but I was actually at what I would consider a good public school. Certainly one of the better ones, as opposed to many of the ones throughout Georgia.
Sure.
But I it was my life. And that was mostly because I was the only out gay kid. And so it got a lot of questions thrown at me. It got a slurs thrown at me, to be quite frank.
Sure.
But it also really helped me get in touch with the fact that I'm an empathic person. And it if I can say that, like having
say it one more time. Yeah, say that one more time.
Yeah, having trouble through my youth made me a better person overall.
I think that you wear that well. And so we kind of doubling back to, we talked about like, how do you deal with the attention on social media, especially the negative attention that you'll get when you become a candidate of this caliber. You probably credit your high school experience a lot with that, probably when you practice that early, is having that thick skin. And then that empathy that you seem to kind of carry with all your messaging. So, and Chase, so kind of to put in timeline perspective, I think you and I are around the same age, right? When did you graduate high school?
I was class of.
You gonna say it one more time, Chase?
Because I left for a while.
You're gonna say it one more time when you come back. Say what class?
2006. 2006 is when I graduated, because I left.
Yeah, we're right around the kind of same time. I graduated in 2000, and so I remember back to my high school days. There was I went to a pretty liberal high school. Went to a place called Caddo Magnet High School for around 3 years, and that was like where all like the really quote unquote smart kids went, and it was very artistic and musical, and all that kind of things, and like always won the science fairs and the quiz bowls, and so kind of like there was an island of misfits. And so even there, it seems like I think back, and there was only like maybe 1 or 2 or 3 openly gay people in the entire high school at the time. And, to think now to modern times, how that's like, you'll have 3 in a class, and so I can only imagine how difficult that must have been for you, man. So, but hats off to you. Cause like I said, you have a certain air of both empathy and compassion. And it comes through with both your messaging and your presence, and really, again, hats off, because it speaks highly to you and your character. So Chase,
Michael, let me interject real
sure.
quick, because I simply don't believe you went to a high school for smart kids.
I did, man. They fucked up. They figured it out, and they got me out of there.
The way your debate performance obviously proves that you're highly intelligent. Probably got an IQ maybe 1 or 2 points higher than mine.
I don't know, man.
Mine's
I don't know.
1 or 2 points higher.
I don't know.
But,
I was there for 3. I was there for 3 years, and what happened is, at the very end of my high school career, they changed principals, and there was about 10 of us in high school that they just, I guess, didn't want there anymore. And they said, you got to leave. And we got a letter. Like, I got a letter. This is a personal story. I got a letter like the week before my senior year starts. Okay. I'm in the backyard. My mom comes out to the backyard, and she's like in tears. Okay. And she's like, Michael, they're not letting you back in school. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, cool. Like, I'm awesome. I was like, this is totally rad, and so I had to switch schools my senior year, which was also kind of weird, because, I went from a school where I'd known everybody to like my senior year knowing nobody. And it was whatever. But that's enough about public schools,
I think that's part of your libertarian experience too.
Like, is my anti-authoritarianism.
Well, when they came to you and said you don't fit the mold,
right?
Because if I may empathize for like a quick 15 seconds, I grew up in the suburbs of Los Angeles, being one of the only black kids at my elementary school.
Damn.
I think there was about 6 of us. One of them was my brother. So whenever there was only 2 segments of Black history at that time, because I'm 10 years older than Michael, so I'm 1990. But growing up in the 80s, there was only 2 segments of Black history that we learned in elementary school, and that was slavery and Martin Luther King.
That was it. Yeah.
That was it. And then when people talked about those 2 things, being the only Black kid in that class, people used to turn around and look at me, especially in the and I'm like,
and Marcus is like, what, dude?
I'm
like,
just trying to fit in. That was, I was like, dude, I thought I was one of you, but you guys are turning around looking at me. And I think that's what shapes a lot of people's transition towards libertarianism.
So are
because
we
you
saying
know,
that we're like putting together a formula here for how to make a good libertarian? Is like you'd have to give them
Struggle.
like a little bit of adolescent struggle, a little bit
Yeah.
of being different, a little bit of distrust of authority. You combine those things together with a good sense of humor, some intelligence. You got to have a lot of that to be a libertarian, in my opinion. And then, like you said, a thick skin, and here you go. And like we can make the libertarian Superman is what we could do. Seems to me like more actual intelligent people are already and are turning libertarian, while the two-party supporters think that they are more intelligent but keep doing the same things over and over. Common Arms Trade Company, our sponsor, said that, and it's so true. Chase, so I get the chance here in Little Rock to about once a month guest host a pretty popular conservative radio show, okay, with a very large listenership. And when I'm talking about conservative, I mean this is a very conservative talk radio show, and of course we're in a very conservative state. And if when I first started kind of doing it, I would mention to people all the time, hey, look, you keep voting for these people. Don't call them rhinos. You're the rhino, right? These are just Republicans. That's what they do. Quit saying they're rhinos. Like, they're the ones in power. Kevin McCarthy is the Speaker of the House. He's literally one of the most powerful Republicans in the world today. So, you don't have the ability to say, well, he's a rhino. No, you are. And I tell you what, Chase, people are slowly waking up to that concept. Do you see that happening on the campaign trail?
Yeah, I do. Give me 1 second, because my dog is going absolutely insane
Go
right
ahead.
now. I don't
Go
know
ahead.
What the hell is going
Also,
on? Give me
while
2
Go
seconds.
ahead.
Chase is
We'll
taking
continue.
care of that, I want
Yeah.
to interject on Kevin McCarthy because he's
Sure.
from my state. And Kevin McCarthy, I think he got well under 100,000 votes to be elected to Congress. Like, I'm talking, I'm pretty sure, I'll look it up. Well, there's a sign, if the libertarian lady or the scientific
Well,
libertarian
we'll
is still
remember,
up.
Marcus, all congressional districts have the same amount of, population. So
Yeah.
100,000 votes isn't crazy. But
No, he did not get 100,000 votes. That's what I'm saying. Kevin McCarthy is
hold on, Chase, did you have to pull out the 38? Did you have to get it out?
Not. She was just barking at probably
Okay.
squirrels. I don't know what it was, but man, she was
If
just.
I was there, I'd have been with you, brother. I'd have been like, let's stack up.
Yeah, Marcus
Let's
said,
go,
I'd have been with
squirrels.
you, bro.
Squirrels are delicious, by the way.
So, did I tell
I've
you the
eaten squirrel
story?
meat before.
Tell us the story, Chase.
Did I
Go
tell you
ahead.
the story last time when I caused the runoff? The next morning, I'm on like a meeting, a Teams meeting at work, and I just see like a face walking past one of my windows. I'm like, who? That was some crazy guy trying to come after me because I caused the runoff. So I grabbed my 38.
Yeah.
And I opened the door with a 38 behind my back, and I'm like, who the hell are you? And it was a camera person for the local news. And he was scared. He's like, oh, they said they were going to text you. And I look at my phone. I have like 5 missed texts from the local news people. I'm like, okay, this story slowly back away.
Yeah, just hold on a second, man.
I don't know why that's not one of your campaign commercials.
It
I
should be-
wish they had some video of that, because everybody knows when you're holding your hand behind your back and then aggressively asking, who are you on my property?
And for the record,
down south knows
another
what the
reason that Michael White likes Chase Oliver is Chase Oliver is also a wheel gun guy like me. So I have a special place in my heart for guys that like revolvers and ladies that like revolvers. And so, my EDC every day pretty much is a revolver, whether a large frame or a small frame. This is my small frame that I carry sometimes.
Probably high capacity too, huh?
Yeah, no, it's not. Man, I don't. I just.
Hey man, if you know
shot
what you're
placement.
doing, if you know when you only need 6.
That's right. And I'm going to give a little shout out to some rounds here that are not a sponsor, not related to us. There's a certain handgun ammunition that I want everyone to give a shot to, and that is Liberty Civil Defense ammunition. I'm very impressed with this stuff. Very impressed. And maybe even Common Arms Trade Company can get some and give you some give you a
go
discount
there for your firearms.
But this stuff is like 55 grains and it goes like 2,000 feet per second. So it pops level 3 plates as a handgun. And so, I'm like, man, I don't need more than 5. And if I do, I'm it's whatever. Like, at this point in time.
What about, I got to ask Chase, because Walking Dead was based mainly in Georgia.
That's right.
Do you think a wheel gun is the proper firearm, considering The Walking Dead is going to be mainly based in your area and spread out from there? And I'm assuming.
Well,
that was a documentary, right?
Here's the thing, right? Okay, revolvers, they're pretty easy mechanical. They're pretty analog. So I would trust a nice revolver with me in a zombie situation, considering you can't really shoot guns too much anyways because you attract the walkers.
Rick Grimes with the
so really, you want to be like Michonne.
Oh, yeah.
Crossbow. Yeah.
Crossbow works good too,
yeah,
right? But I'm more of a melee weapon kind of guy. So
yeah, and you know, and if we're gonna get into zombie, like, you know, theatrics and zombie strategy here, I mean, dude, the truth is that, like, they're pretty slow, man. You know, I feel like, you know, if you can be evasive, you know, like, I mean, like, come on, man, like you know,
I Am Legend, they weren't slow.
No, they weren't. So, but that's the Will Smith.
That was another documentary.
That was another one, and then of course, 28 days later, they're pretty fast in that.
Yeah,
too.
And you know the one with who was that? Brad Pitt.
World War Z.
Yeah, they were fast. They were taking out airplanes.
So I went to a panel at Dragon Con one year. It was run by this guy who does real life emergency preparation training and models for like what happens when hurricane hits a city.
Right.
Okay.
For what happens in case of a zombie or in case like Godzilla attacks, like how would civil society actually function? And he's like, there's two kinds of zombies. You have your bacterial zombies,
okay,
which are the slow moving zombies. They travel through a bite. You know, you have to get bitten by them. They slow move. They're kind of dumb. Then you have viral zombies. Those are the 20 years later. All it takes is a drop of blood or some mist, and you're infected. And they're fast moving, scary zombies. So he went through the whole model of like, what would an evacuate back? And you know,
so he said, what would an evacuation look like for a viral zombie outbreak? Is that what he said? Okay.
Well, I have a
fast
question
as hell.
real quick for both of you. You got the viral zombies, the fast moving.
Okay.
The 3 guns that you're carrying, because you can physically, most humans can physically carry 3 types of firearms. What are the 3 for both of you?
Okay, I'm going to let Chase go first here. Chase,
so I'm going to have.
He's going to have to say it again.
Yeah, I'll have a 38 special.
Okay.
You know, your standard Glock 9mm.
Okay.
And probably, you know, a long gun, so some kind of rifle, maybe an AR-15.
Okay. All right.
Gotcha.
2 small ones, 1 big one.
Okay. So I'm going to go a little bit different here. Let's see here, Marcus, just to like mix it up. I'm going to say I'm going to have 1 black powder firearm. 1. Only because in a pinch I could find a way to make black powder and I can cast lead balls. Okay. So if I run out of stuff, and I could probably make fulminates for primers, I could probably do that. I'm just going to have 1of those in the back. I'm not going to rely on it, but I'm going to have 1. All right. And I can also take the black powder and make, like, you know, IEDs or something if I need to. Number 2 is I'm definitely going to go something high capacity. I'm going AK-47. I'm going 7.62 by 39, man. I want something. I'm just throwing lead within, you know, 50 yards, something like that. But you know what? The weight on the ammo, that might be kind of a problem, but I'm going to have to go with the AK. I've always envisioned myself with an AK during a zombie apocalypse. And then, man, I'm probably going, this is going to sound really crazy. I'm probably going to go something in 22 long rifle because I can carry a ton of ammo in my backpack, right? I can carry a ton of it. And if I can hit those little sons of bitches right between the eyes, I can probably start putting them down. And those are Michael White's 3 guns in the viral zombie outbreak. And then
I'm just imagining now you in the viral zombie outbreak with your blunderbuss just throwing down nails and
just
crap.
Shoving forks in it.
Wait till you see the whites of their eyes.
As quickly as possible.
Tally ho, bitches.
Just go to the hardware store and you just find anything to throw into that thing.
That's right, man. I mean, think about it. You can just clear a hallway out, man.
Yeah. I'm going Glock 17, AK-47, and Mossberg 590A1.
Really? Okay. All right. What are you carrying in the Mossberg, Marcus? Are you carrying buck? Are you carrying slugs? Are you alternating?
I would probably go with Magnum double-aught buck because it's like 12 to 15, and it'll go a pretty good distance and be effective at a wider range.
You cutting the barrel down on the 590? Because I mean, there's no ATF anymore.
I paid too much for it, and I don't think you could. 590s aren't cheap.
Maybe I want a Tommy gun.
But
yeah, right. Back to policy. How should a smaller government handle natural disasters and man-made? That's actually an incredibly good question. I got asked this very similar question at a candidate event that I did. Because oftentimes as a libertarian, you will get challenged on the fact that, like, you all of a sudden you're for no government. And then people want to bring up the things that government sometimes does decently or well, or the things they expect them to. So that's a really good question. So Chase, I'm a voter. You come to talking about libertarianism. You're talking about limited government, small government, self-responsibility. And I raise my hand and I say, hey, I went through Katrina in Louisiana. How would that have gone in a libertarian government? Right?
Okay. So first, two things. First, one of the things that happens in a natural disaster often is the government has to actually remove their own logistical regulations and procedures to make it easier to get aid out there.
Right.
So in a libertarian governing world, you would never have those things to begin with. Go through that step of removing those things like the Jones Act and other things across the country.
Beautiful answer.
Secondly, as far as FEMA, our National Guard will actually be in our better job of disaster relief efforts as opposed to sending our National Guard all over the world.
Right.
So there is that response. But from a federal response, really the main thing you can do is open up our military to provide any logistical assistance. You want to make sure that you are providing, in terms of that logistical work, be working with the local community as much as possible to know what those needs. Why you want to have a decentralized government. It's the most responsive to the people. But ultimately with Katrina, what we wouldn't have done is we wouldn't have let the Superdome get the way it was.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's
absolutely horrible. That was horrible.
The biggest crime that they weren't airdropping much more stuff there at the time. But yeah, some major natural disasters in a libertarian government. And in fact, when you're not spending so much money in all of the other areas of government that don't really matter, as a minarchist, I think you're leaving more money to be able to have protection of your borders and to have a military that can actually respond when there's a major disaster. So I don't see why you can't have that without, and of course, remove the layers itself is just a monster of bureaucracy. It is there are just so many levels of FEMA that are it's redundant and it makes it harder. So in a libertarian world, you would remove so many extra layers of red tape, and disaster response would be more efficient,
right?
And would be better for people. And that also includes a pandemic response. The thing that we did not do that we should have done from the very beginning was deregulate the FDA mechanisms around testing, so people could have been tested originally. We had 6 months of BS red tape from the FDA with regards to testing that made the entire situation much worse and gave them the excuses for the lockdowns and all the other things. So in a libertarian government, you would never have gotten past much of that because we would have been able to properly test from the very beginning and actually do without doing across the board draconian lockdowns, because that's what ended up having to be, well, not even having to be done. It's what they did to make it seem like. But at that point, the genie was out of the bottle.
Yeah, and so just to kind of paraphrase for the listeners who might have missed some of that, I'm getting the audio pretty decently in my headphones, even though you might be, I think, breaking up here in the broadcast. Essentially, the same answer I kind of give is the decentralized government is more effective and responsive to anything in the immediacy than a centralized, bureaucratic nightmare. If you go and look at FEMA's own documents, they will tell you that if a city of a population over 250,000, if it is to have a natural disaster that incapacitates more than a quarter of that city, their average response time for all things, that means once they can check off communications, they can check off logistics, they can check off food, water, aid, healthcare, their best estimates are 5 to 7 business days. Okay, so I want you to think about that for a second, people. That's their best estimate for one city with a quarter of a population under a 250,000 is 5 to 7 business days. Imagine an event that might encompass the entire country. We're talking about literally months and months and months of you waiting for help. It's not probably ever going to get there. So I'm with you on that one, Chase. That's a great answer, and you said it very well.
Michael, if I could say this, because this is why I tell people out here in California, even the Republicans are different, because they ask me, why do you need an AK-47 and things like that. Out here in California, I live in a 4-county area. There's 15 million people, 15 million plus people in that 4-county area that encompasses the greater Los Angeles basin.
Right.
If we have an earthquake over 7.0 or whatever, the big one hits.
Yeah, dude.
We're not going to have, I think our current system is about 30 seconds warning.
Right.
how is the government going to respond to a disaster that affects 15 million people?
I'm telling you, I just went through one that affected 80,000, and it still took forever. And so when I see
Yeah.
things like Gavin Newsom saying no gas generators by this year, no this, it's literally removing self-reliance, which is the first line of defense for anything is yourself. That's a very libertarian principle. We believe in the individual first, and then everything comes second. That was a really good question from the libertarian lady I'd like to get to. If you want to pull it back up on the screen, Marcus. She basically essentially asked, what's your response, Chase, to people who say generally libertarians pull votes from Republicans? I know my response to that, but I want to hear Chase's.
So, just using my Senate race as an example,
Right.
most of the people who voted for me actually identify as politically independent of the two parties. And then I pull from Republicans and Democratic voters about
the same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
about the same.
And the truth is, those votes do not belong to the Republicans. They belong to the voter. So if Republicans want to stop having libertarians take their vote,
They need to run better candidates.
run better candidates and better policy. But I will say this. I have yet to see an example of a libertarian jumping into the Republican Party that makes the Republican Party more libertarian. What always happens is that libertarian becomes more Republican.
That's right. That's right. And because they got to play ball with them, and that's what happens. Chase, I saw the exact same thing. And you know, after the election, you get those. I know you got them. I received messages from many people, both voters who did vote for me and those who said, "Oh, I really wanted to, but." You know, I got scared, and I had a lot of those messages, and they were across the board. I had people that wrote me and said I voted Democrat my entire life, and you were the first time I didn't. I voted Republican my entire life. The first time I didn't. So I fully reject that premise, but it's one of those things where I think you have to live it and be in it because. Okay, for instance, perfect example, Chase, when Ricky Dale Harrington ran for governor here in Arkansas, right? He was up against Chris Jones, the Democrat candidate, and of course Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the Republican. I went down to a coffee shop in downtown Little Rock, which is very liberal. Downtown is very Democrat, and the lady had on a Chris Jones button. And I actually, I don't think Chris Jones is a bad guy or anything. And I said, "Oh, that's great. Chris Jones." I was like, "What do you think about Ricky Dale Harrington?" I said, "That's who I'm voting for." And she goes, "Oh, don't vote for him. You're just taking votes away from the Democrats." So it goes both ways. They just want to use it.
It goes both ways.
It goes both ways. I think, Marcus, are you itching for a question here? It looks like you got something you want to ask.
Yeah, this is one of those things that it troubles me, especially the way we're going right now. You know, today is the first day of Pride Month, and we're in the midst of a culture war that is progressively going hot. It was a cold culture war where people just talking shit to each other on social media.
Right.
But now this culture war seems to be heating up. It's affecting businesses that you don't have to patronize. I want to put that out there. But
yeah, so Chase,
one quick point to this. I don't understand why Americans are wanting government delving into culture wars, into people's lives and whatnot. Why are there so many people asking for more government?
Yeah, so Chase, answer that question because you speak well about the culture wars. First off, why do you think they're going hot? Secondly, how do you think that we can pull people out of them? What do you think about that?
So they're going hot. The two parties make money out of that. They make votes out of that. It gets them the energy and enthusiasm to bring out their base. I saw a similar thing happen in the 2004 election around George Bush wanting to ban gay marriage, right? He used that to get people out. Not because people are insistent upon using the government to impose their culture on other people, and that upsets people naturally. You see this in Florida, for instance, with Ron DeSantis. You see that ire going up because they see him trying to control things in their state, right? I advocate I believe that you should be allowed to live as yourself without interference, and that we're going to have to be able to live. We'll never get everyone to agree with us on all cultural issues.
No.
Right.
And so it's our job to be able to learn how to live with each other, and that requires a ceasefire.
So I try, so Chase, I think you've seen it a couple of times from me. I try to, being in the state that I am in, and again, you're in Georgia, and maybe a more liberal district of Georgia than most people, and I'm in a very conservative state, and I try to my best sort of keep people with their eye on the prize, so to speak, right? Like, you know, I understand. I realize that parents might not want certain books in a library, and I understand that they might not want certain displays at a store. I get that, and it's their right not to participate in it and to be upset about it and not want to partake in those things or pay for it. But I want them to keep their eye on the prize. Like, it's not a win for everybody in the long term. Like, it's a short term little win. Like, that's it. Like, if like that's your thing, that's just a short-term win. The Fed's still here. The IRS is still here. The ATF is still here. You're still being warrantlessly spied on. We're still, you know, engaged in wars all over the world. We're accumulating debt at a rapid rate. How do you do that? How do you think that, how does a Chase Oliver say, hey, you know, because you're going to have to pull people from both sides of this, right? How do you get them to get their eye on the prize of what's really important?
It's difficult, right?
It is.
It's difficult to pull people out of their entrenched positions on the culture war. But my answer to that is there's just far more important things to worry about than like a Bud Light can or how Target is marketing itself to gay people.
Right.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, this should be about a free market,
right?
A free market of ideas and culture. And it's going to fall out the way it does. If you don't want to shop at Target because they have a pride display, that is your right. Take your dollars elsewhere.
Right.
Crosses the line is when you walk into the store and you destroy the display. Or when you threaten the workers who have nothing to do.
Who are just trying to earn.
The guy who works at the cashier at Target is not responsible for
He's just trying to pay his bills, people. He's, you know, and he doesn't want to be probably at Target any more than you want to be at Target.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I think really that's when it crosses a line. And I say it will cross the line the other way when people threaten violence. Pride. Like if you're threatening violence against like the Chick-fil-A because they're not gay friendly enough to you,
sure,
that's wrong too. You just don't go buy their biscuits,
right?
Like it's not that hard, and then ultimately the free market will fix that.
Yeah,
you know?
It will, and
where culture goes.
And so the problem is, and again, we're getting close here, but you put a pin in a very important subject, which is the fact of why a perturbed free market is so dangerous to not have one, right? A controlled market becomes dangerous because the natural processes that sort of, what I'd say, slough off these things in a natural and productive manner aren't allowed to happen. So like when you have ESG and CEI scores, when you have the ability for a central bank to essentially have two large companies that control the equity flows in this country, right? And they're allowed to just do whatever, you know, the free market's broken, this doesn't happen. Now people get enraged, they get entrenched in their positions. The duopoly uses that to keep people against each other, to keep that system in place, and it all keeps going full circle. And then we end up with, like you said, where these things where there's violence against someone shoots up someplace, somebody does something like this, and we're all losing, right, Chase? We're all losing in that sort of scenario. And so it's really, I think it's hard for me sometimes to try to stay positive that, you know, we can wake people up out of this sort of coma that they have been in about this. But you make me hopeful. You know, when I read some of your tweets, there's been some mornings, man, I've woken up with the black pill. I'll be honest, man. I've woken up and I'm like, this is, you know, I can't.
Hell's a black pill?
The black man. Well, it's the opposite of the white pill, Marcus, and it's not the Caucasian one. Okay, so you know,
there's Pilgrim.
Why gotta be the black pill?
Yeah, why gotta be the black pill? So I wake up some mornings with it and I go, hey, you know, things aren't going to get better. And then, like I said, I read something positive from somebody like you or somebody like Lars or somebody like Mike, and I see, okay, the Libertarian Party, at least in these handful of people here, is trying to at least continue a positive message that things can get better, because that was such a common theme in politics 25, 30 years ago, was the idea of optimism. And if you turn on the television today or you listen to most candidates today, nobody's going to say things are better in a year, right? They're just saying, let's not make them as worse as they can be. That's kind of what we got. And so that was a little bit of a rant there, but you do stir that emotion in me. You do stir that emotion in me.
I like that rant. I really did. I thought you hit on some very critical points. Only thing I would add to that rant is Americans need to go back and read about Bacon's Rebellion, because it runs such parallels to where we are right now, where it's pitting classes against each other while the wealthy play their stupid games and live their fancy lives. So that's what I would like to impart upon you, because we are coming up on about an hour.
We're coming up on it right now. So what I'm going to ask Chase to do here in a second is, so Chase, what's next for you over the next year, and how do people find you?
Yeah, so find me at Vote.
Say it again, Chase, because you broke up right there.
VoteChaseOliver.com is my website. You can find all of
your socials there.
all that good stuff there. What's next for me? I will be traveling around the country, participating in Pride events all through the month of June. And on June the 5th, Monday, June the 5th, I'll be at Atlanta City Hall fighting to stop Cop City in Atlanta and asking that libertarians join me for public comment, because even if you don't want to speak, you can give me your 2 minutes and I'll use it. So
and you'll use it. And by the way, I think people need to go find some of your stuff on there. I watched a couple of your things from Cop City, and it was really, really good. As always, powerful public speaker. Yeah. And so Chase, when you come into Arkansas, man, we got two things we got to do. We got to go do some fishing. I'm taking you fishing. We got to go shoot some guns. And then you said there's 3 or 4 things we got to do. I know you want to go down and see, the Little Rock 9 Memorial. And I think you want to visit West Memphis as well. Mm-hmm. And I'd be honored and privileged to join you on that excursion to those places. I think that'd be a lot of fun, man. So I look forward to getting down here to Arkansas, man.
I think I'm planning to come out there in the fall. I think I'd spoken to somebody in the party who was saying they're planning an event in the fall they want me to come out to. So hopefully the weather will be nice and we can get out and do some of that stuff.
Fall in Arkansas is amazing.
So, Chase, if you come to Southern California, I will take you shooting. I can't guarantee fishing. I will take you to Roscoe's Chicken and Waffle.
There you go.
And I will make a brisket for you. So I'm just here trying to one up Mr. Michael White because he's an awesome individual. I got jealous because he's met some of your I don't want to say competitors, some of your peers in the for the nomination.
Peers. Yeah, peers.
And if you come to Southern California, I will also show you a good time. It may not be as rough and rugged and rural.
We're gonna bifurcate it. We're gonna have 50% of our time chase rough and rugged. Then we're gonna suit up and we're gonna do some political stuff. We're gonna do it like that, man. And we might blend it a little bit in the middle, man. So anyway, so votechaseoliver.com is where you can find him. You can find all of his socials there. Definitely check him out on Twitter for sure. He has great content. Facebook, he could use some more followers over there. But Chase, we're gonna have to do this again really soon. It sucks that we had these technical issues during this broadcast because there's a lot of great things said, and as always, it's been a lot of fun. And with that, I think that we're about ready to take this one off the air. Mr. Marcus Matthews, I'm going to let you take us off, man. You say the first part, I'll say the second part, and we'll sign us off.
My fellow Americans, remember your homework is to read about Bacon's Rebellion. That is how you spell bacon and rebellion. That is your homework for this week. I expect your reports due by next Wednesday. And like always, live free
or die. Take us off, brother. Thank you very much, Chase. Thank you so much for being here.